Well, it's been a long time coming, and that has finally happened. So let's join Dr. Anis Sidique, Chief of Polio, UNICEF Nigeria. He joins us via Skype this morning. Well, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me in the program.
Well, great to have you. So in this year 2020 that the world is facing this major health crisis, COVID-19, this news comes up. Just how remarkable is this, really?
This is an outstanding and remarkable event and this major feat for Nigeria and overall for Africa, that polio-free certification amidst this COVID-19 emergency. While the whole global community, African community, and Nigerian community is all, we are overwhelmed with the COVID-19 situation. And this news came as a ray of hope that vaccine works and we can achieve public health goals. We can, together through the partnership, we can overcome any health crisis in the country. So I think it's a very, very welcome news, very overwhelming feeling overall, what I see at the moment.
Just for us to understand the value of this achievement, can you walk us through this journey? Because I know it's a decade-long journey, in fact, over a decade, really. Just walk us through. How did we get to this point? What were the challenges on the road?
This journey actually started in 1996 in Nigeria, when the country has started polio eradication program and with the campaigns. And if you can imagine, during that period in 1996, there is an estimation that 75,000 children were paralyzed in Africa alone. And this is like a bizarre figure, in a sense that so many children were paralyzed in African continent. And a lot of children died due to polio, and we do not have any statistics around that. So it started, and initially the campaign was very limited, and then it has been expanded in all the states of Nigeria. But in 2003, there was some unsubstantiated rumor that the polio vaccine is not safe, and that campaign has been, halt for a while. So there was a lot of effort made to see the vaccine is safe. The stakeholders visited the vaccine manufacturers in different parts of the world. They returned and ensure and reassure the community that the vaccine is safe. And then we built the partnership with the Northern traditional leaders, and the government was very, very on top of and upfront, fixing all the campaign-related challenges, such as the vaccine-related rumor. Those rumors were corrected with the right information, involving the community, the religious focal persons, the influencers, and moreover, polio survivor groups, that those who are affected by polio, they started moving with the polio teams to see how is the risk, how difficult a life if somebody is suffering from polio. So all yielded a very good result, and we did not see any case 2014 onward, last few cases, and then 2015 there was no case, and 2016 there was another outbreak in Borno where 4 cases were reported. So since then, it has been really, really difficult, in a sense that in Borno, where we have the insurgency, and this program has to work in a very difficult scenario and challenges. But my Nigerian government was quick to build the civil-military partnership, ensuring that the vaccines are delivered where it is possible, and the inaccessible area where vaccine delivery was not possible, we had to work around ring fencing those areas and delivering vaccine. Moreover, there was a very technological innovations around that, the geospatial mapping, the vaccine tracking system, even satellite imagery help to get where this vaccination is not taking place, so the vaccine can be delivered there. So in Borno, we see that the outbreak was responded very well with huge deployment of the community informants, community mobilizers, and also the collaboration between the host community and the IDP community, and today we see the result that last 4 years there is no case. And the African Regional Certification Committee visitors came, they went state by state, verify whether Nigeria's claim without any wild polio virus is correct, and they validated this information, and they went through every nook and corner and was very sure that Nigeria is fit for certification. When Nigeria was certified, fit for certification, for example, the rest of the African country who were wild polio virus free for many years are automatically come to this candidature of certification. So
just one moment, Dr. Sidique. There's something you mentioned a little while ago about Borno State, and it just raised a question in me. What was the role that state governments, the subnational levels, had to play beyond what the federal government did, beyond what the development partners did? What kind of partnership what kind of contributions were the state governments at the different levels able to make? Contributions were they able to make to the fight to ensure that we kicked polio out?
The state government was in the driving seat since this Borno outbreak. They were able to build this relationship and partnership with different actors working in Borno. As I mentioned about that, this partnership with the military, and building that capacity to deliver vaccine, that has been wonderful. Where inaccessible area, and when there is any area liberated, so the state government was quick to form the vaccination team, sending them along with the security personnel to vaccinate those areas. Apart from that, the Borno government also ensured the cross-border vaccination, so that those is cross-border vaccination means is not only the bordering countries, but also intra-border. For example, one LGA to another LGA, one ward to another ward. When there is a movement going on, local movement is taking place, there is a vaccination site. There is a vaccination site where the population movement was taking place. They were all vaccinated. They also organized campaigns, the mass campaigns. In every campaign, almost 2 million children were vaccinated. So this has impacted the overall immunity of the children, which actually interrupted the wild polio virus transmission over there. So I really feel that the state government did a commendable job, and also different partners like those who are working on the ground, UNICEF. We deployed 4,000 community mobilizers in Borno State, so that they are working shoulder to shoulder with the government deployed vaccinators. We have partners, WHO, Center for Disease Control, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And Rotary also played a very important role building the relationship. And we have a partnership with the Northern Traditional Leaders Council.
Okay.
For example,
just one moment, Dr. Sidique. I also remember, of course, very vividly how noisome, so to speak, the campaigns were to kick polio out of Nigeria in the 90s into the 2000s and all of that. But then there's still reports that we had a resurgence at some point. What was responsible at that time, and how can we ensure that it doesn't happen again?
I really the word resurgence is, of course, when you see virus after a while, then you can say it's a resurgence, but it's a continuation of the transmission. You know, if you say, like, I would like to compare with the fire, like if you have a house and there is a 5 rooms, and you see the 5 rooms are having no fire, and the one room is having fire inside, but you were not able to see what is there. But at some point, you discover there's a fire, and then you just do firefighting activity. So it's almost similar, like the in Nigeria, 37 states were polio free. Out of 37 states, 36 states were polio free over the years, and in Borno, where the insurgency is there, and there is some inaccessible area, and the surveillance was a bit compromised. So for a period of time, you could not see the wild polio virus. But when Nigerian military had some advancement, leveraged the areas, and you did a good surveillance, and we found the cases. So this is a continuation of the wild poliovirus transmission. But there is evidence, there is epidemiological evidence and surveillance validation, which shows that it is unlikely that any transmission is existing in Nigeria. And normally, any country is without polio case, for wild polio case for 3 years is eligible for certification. But in Nigeria's situation, it has been awaited for 4 years just to ensure that if there's any evidence of wild poliovirus transmission in the country. And African Regional Certification Committee was very much confident that there is no wild poliovirus transmission is happening in Nigeria. So
in other words,
I think,
in other words,
in the global.
Right. Sorry. In other words, you're saying that that fire has been put out entirely. The war is over, and as far as you're concerned, there shouldn't be any new transmission of polio.
Exactly. There will be no new wild poliovirus transmission.
Okay, well, we'll hold on to that. And we've talked about government and development partners, government at all levels, but, there's this remarkable part of health workers that were on the field. They had to go to, different parts. Some of them faced harassment and what have you. Can you tell us about their experience and really how this came to bear in achieving this result?
Yeah, we are aware of the some of the areas where the vaccination team has been facing difficulties. Basically, there are areas where it's just very small proportion of area where there's confusion about the vaccine or intention of the vaccination process. For example, one of the common thing is that why the polio is so intense, why the polio vaccinators are coming every month in my doorstep, while we are facing a lot of other health problems, and there is no door-to-door services. So it's very difficult to explain at every level that the polio eradication is a global program where every nook and corner has to be mopped up, and it has to be ensured that nowhere this wild polio virus is existing. And to achieve that goal, every single child needs to be vaccinated repeatedly so that the children are, building the immunity. So when we see this kind of scenarios, for example, we develop a good kind of mechanism when such a scenario arrives. We have a local committee, ward committees, where the influencers were very active, reaching there and trying to help the team to get access to the household. But what you say is this harassment and other things is a very sporadic, and I think most of the vaccinators are taking it in good spirit because they are working for a cause, and that cause is very important, that wiping out wild virus and extinction of the virus from the world, from the globe. So that's what the motive from the vaccinators have.
There is a question bugging my mind right now, Dr. Sidique. We have several kinds of fevers, and each one of them was discovered from time to time. The pandemic that we're all dealing with all over the world now is from the family of coronaviruses. So we knew some, we were able to deal with them, check them, curtail them, and then this one came, and they called it the new coronavirus. Now, is there any chance, and of course we weren't prepared for it, is there any chance that anything that is not poliomyelitis but that could look like it could recur or could come without us even knowing about it? Is there any research work going on to ensure that we know that there is something they call AFM, acute flaccid myelitis, that's like poliomyelitis but is not? That one is known at least. But is there any research going on to ensure that anything that looks like poliomyelitis doesn't sneak in through the back door?
I'm glad that you brought the issue of acute flaccid paralysis, and that is the surveillance indicator for polio. And just to explain, acute flaccid paralysis means a flaccid paralysis, and if you know a flaccid paralysis within a children, you need to report. So the acute flaccid paralysis does not mean it is polio. Only laboratory tests confirm that this is a polio case. So the acute flaccid paralysis is a blanket, kind of thing, so that everybody understand that any children under 15 years of old and having acute paralysis, which is flaccid in nature, and with few other clinical symptoms. So there are many diseases like that, like Guillain-Barré syndrome is also another disease which resembles like acute flaccid paralysis, almost like polio. So there is a lot of research going on that those kind of diseases which almost like polio, so we can differentiate after the stool sample analysis that this is really not polio. And also we have the vaccine-derived polio cases. Sometimes, because of the poor routine immunization, some of the non-virulent polio strain is in the environment, which can affect children, which is not really very strong thing, but we need to be very careful. So any case of acute flaccid paralysis, if anybody see any case, should report immediately so that the government surveillance focal person can immediately investigate the case and send the stool sample to the laboratory for research and also identification of the virus from it or not. So that will be very helpful. We never know this wild polio virus, as you said earlier, the resurgence. Of course, the resurgence can take place. There are two other countries in the globe having wild polio virus, and in this world where those countries and the movement is taking place, and the adult person can carry the wild virus from other countries to this country, or visitors from this country visit the other country can have the wild polio virus, and they can bring back this virus inside the country. So resurgence or outbreak is not impossible, but we have to follow the international health regulations so that we know how to deal with that. And if there is any kind of importation of wild polio virus in the country, and the country is really ready, because it has a robust emergency preparedness plan to address this.
Speaking of that emergency plan to address, well, we don't hope for a resurgence, but in the eventuality or possibility that happens, when a war is over, the troops don't just up and leave. There's still, some form of presence, really. In fact, they have their formation still there and they leave gradually. So what's in place? Can you tell us what's in place to ensure, what kind of institutions are in place to ensure that if, we hope not, but if there's anything remotely close to polio, we can nip it in the bud?
Yeah, the emergency preparedness is something like when we have an ongoing acute flaccid paralysis in surveillance going on. And our colleagues within the government and World Health Organization, they are very much on top of these surveillance activities. So if there is any case report, any case comes in our radar, that immediately this emergency, the outbreak response, reactivate. That that determine that if in a geographical location, like if we know which state, then there is a methodology to identify that how much area to be to be identified for outbreak response, like number of children to be vaccinated, and also taking, like as you mentioned about COVID scenario, like almost the same process, like identifying the index case and see the contact tracing and the other methods, so that we find a way to collect the samples and confirm that there is an outbreak out there. And then we ramp up our ability, like the government immediately starts procuring vaccine. We have stockpiles of vaccines, and then the vaccine immediately to distribute. And within 7 days, the campaign preparation is there. And within another few days, an actual campaign to carry out in those areas. So Nigeria is, I should say, one of the country in the world having the highest emergency preparedness against polio virus, because it has been dealing these outbreaks for years. So we have, rapid response teams. We have the vaccinators trained. We have a proper vaccination delivery system in place, and we have a robust, outbreak mechanism in every state.
Well, the question now is what can we borrow from that, response in this fight against COVID-19? I mean, you heard the president saying, well, if we can kick out polio, then we can do that with COVID-19. So what can we learn from this fight against polio and then to adapt it to the fight against COVID-19?
I think there's a lot of lesson learned from polio while addressing the COVID. And I think some of them were already in place. For example, the strategies, used for polio in terms of prevention. Polio is a waterborne disease and orophycal routes, and so we know the risk of polio. So the community platforms used for polio has been using for COVID in terms of message dissemination and prevention. We see a lot of good results in terms of reaching out to the communities with the right messages. On the macro level, on the strategic level, there is a presidential task force for polio eradication, which the similar approach has been taken for COVID response, the presidential task force for COVID-19. And you see, as an international public health practitioner, I see that the way Nigeria is managing COVID-19 is quite outstanding, and the communication and the other forms of transparency mechanism is in place. So some of the things we are actually learning from polio, and hopefully if COVID vaccine comes, the polio platform will be hugely responsive and supportive for rolling out the vaccination program.
Maybe we might also consider having a kick COVID out of Nigeria kind of campaign. But Dr. Sidique, thank you so much for your thoughts on the program this morning. We'll take a break now and we'll be back with another topic. Please stay with us.